All right, folks, just one of many useful tools here in the boat shop for cutting fiberglass, which is what we're doing today for our project boat. Now, this is a pretty high-tech one. This is a Romec, not terribly expensive, but it is a corded fiberglass cutting tool. Now, y'all may have seen us a lot of times here on the channel, a good standard pair of scissors, or these little zip snips, which are really cool. These are battery powered and rechargeable. These are all tools that we use when we're prepping to fiberglass a big project, which is what we've got going on today. So if you're new to the channel, I want to welcome everybody. My name is Joe Buskins. I'm a second generation professional boat builder and a 100-ton licensed captain. And this is our project boat. Now, in last week's episode, we actually were fiberglassing our stringers in, which are made out of Coosa board, which we use a lot here. That's a synthetic plywood replacement, very strong, lighter in weight compared to plywood, and it's the material of choice. That's actually what we used when we were building the entirety of the internals of our 29-footer that we built here in our family's boat shop. But what we were doing is continuing today the fiberglassing. So we've gotten one side done. We're doing 3 layers of progressively wider material, and this episode is going to deal a little bit more with the prep before the glassing and cutting all your glass, making sure your surfaces are clean and prepped and ready are a big part of doing a quality job. In fact, prep work may be bigger than the actual application of the fiberglass. So what we're doing on this particular job, you'll notice we got different widths here. These are 6-inch wide, these are going to be 10-inch wide, and then we got some 14-inch wide, which you can see from our previous layers. We basically half lap these, we stagger them, and I generally are going to cut these so that whatever the height is of the stringer, usually we try to run that much out on the floor of the boat and make it really beefy and strong. Now, this boat's going to be stronger than it was when it was original. That has kind of always been the goal of our family here in our boat shop, is to build like commercial grade heavy duty boats. And if you're at home and you're DIYing this thing, you want to do it right. Stringers and transoms gotta be tough, so it's probably better to do it a little on the heavy side. My dad used to say overkill is better than underkill, so that's where we're going with 3 layers of the 1708 biaxial. Now, in preparation for getting ready for our next layer here, once we put this in, I did do a little bit of sanding and prep with some 40 grit. That's a pretty aggressive material there, 40. And I don't know if the camera will pick it up. I hope it will, but I did get in here and I surfaced all of this. Like, we went over everything and knocked any little burrs and scratches down after we put our nice fillet here in the corner. Now, one thing we also like to do occasionally, now especially if the glass has been sitting for some time and you want to be sure you get a good bond, I like to use a little bit of acetone. A lot of times we will put it in a spray bottle, and it's very easy to apply it. And this will help kind of clean the surfaces and also help promote a really good bond. Now, I would highly recommend when you're doing this to be wearing a respirator and have a fan moving, which we will be when we are doing this, but some good PPE is always a good idea. I grew up in the boat shop, and scissors were always the way to go. Now, this will save you some money. They're not as expensive. I think these are about $100, and we'll be sure to put a link in our Amazon store for everything we're using here on the channel. But a good pair of scissors can work equally well. They're just not going to be nearly as fast. Now, there are times that when you need a good pair of scissors in the boat, sometimes when we're working with wet glass and we need to trim in tight spots, going with the mechanized cutters is not going to be the way to go. You're going to want just a good pair of scissors. But you can imagine, like when we were building something like our 29-footer or a major project, anything you can do to speed up the process is a go for me. That is the hot ticket. Now, one thing I may not have mentioned is a lot of times we will use like an aluminum straight edge and just a Sharpie or a magic marker, something like that. There's our aluminum straight edge laying over on the side. And we'll just basically, we go with a tape measure and mark our 10-inch intervals or our 6-inch intervals, and then we just draw a nice line across. Now, it's not critical that it be exactly perfect. There may be a little bit of waver there, but generally that's going to be high quality work. Now, one other question we get a lot from folks viewing the channel is material selection as far as like fiberglass. It can be confusing when you're talking about CSM and 1708 and 1808 and finishing cloth. But if you look here in our family's boat shop, the two materials that we run on our table, this is the 1 ounce, that's 1 ounce CSM or chopped strand mat. That works very good with the vinyl ester or with polyester. Not recommended for epoxy unless you can get some of the European, what they call a powder binder CSM. Otherwise, the solvents are lacking in epoxy to dissolve this and make it work properly. But the other material we really love to use is this 1708 biaxial. It has a layer of the CSM integrated into it, but it's woven together. It doesn't have a chemical binder, and because of that, your 1708 is completely compatible with epoxy, polyester, and vinyl ester. One thing to remember though is you always want to put the CSM side down initially when we're making contact. This is better for bonding. This is going to be more for your strength, the weave here. The CSM is really good for initial bonding, and I also really like it for a cosmetic finish. It makes a real nice uniform finish, and it's really good at sealing. Like if you're trying to seal plywood, you want to waterproof it. If you want to learn more about that too, if you just dive back in the channel, we got some really cool videos where we delve into how much resin consumption you can expect for these and some of the pros and cons working with these materials. So we've got our little Sharpie here, folks, and I want to show you part of the getting ready to glass is prepping your fiberglass, making sure it's going to fit properly, actually even before we start. And to get these corners to work out right, you're going to have to take a little pleat. You're going to have to take a little pleat out of your glass so that you don't have this thick fold or overlap. Y'all notice, just use your little Sharpies. Use the natural fold of the material. Now this is where the scissors are going to come into play a lot better than your power tools as far as cutting glass. You just can't do it with those power tools, but that'll allow that material to kind of fold and overlap without a big crease. And we're going to do that progressively. Now the next one, the next layer, we're going to make it a bit shorter so that we don't stack all these seams in the same place. So we're going to pull this one back. Now this is our 10 inch wide one. We're going to come back a few inches and we'll be doing the same thing. It'll be lapping a little higher, but we're going to stagger it back a bit. And I'm going to probably trim just a couple inches off of the overall length of this one so get better placement. Once you've done this once or twice, it's going to be a lot easier and come more naturally to you. If it's new to you, it can be a bit of a challenge for some folks. Some people pick it up very easily. You can see here again, we've got a nice fold that develops. Can get an idea of where we need to cut and pleat this thing. Now, after some practice and experience, you may not even have to put a mark on it. You may be able to just go, you know what, I see what I need to take out there. I can kind of reach in without even removing it. And then this will kind of half lap over and get an idea of where the seam is. It's right along in there. Just do a little bit of trimming right in place, and you get this beautiful fitment. Plenty good for a transom job like we're doing. And again, with the bigger one, the bigger pieces, we'll take off a little more yet. You can see again, we're having all your material staged and prepped and ready. It's advantageous, or if you can have a helper, we'll stagger this one back a few more inches. We're going to trim a little more off of this one. Again, I'm going from experience there, folks. There's no real set of rules on this exactly. Hopefully these videos give you an idea of where to be. You can see we're doing about a 6-inch stagger on each one. As we tuck that in, same deal. Try to get a fold to develop. We're getting right near the top of our stringer, which is what I like. I generally like to just run one all the way to the top, and then usually a 6-inch one is a good place to start. And then whatever, splitting the difference between the highest one, the longest one. This one's 14 inches, so we did a 10-incher there. This will really help you, because once you've activated your resin, and if you're trying to fit this starting point here, this is going to slow you down quite a bit. And anything you can do to minimize problems, I'm going to lay that seam over just a little bit further to one side. So again, this one is hiding that one. I hope that makes sense to everybody there watching. And if you folks are enjoying the content, please feel free to hit that subscribe button, like, share, comment, tell a friend. And again, I want to welcome everybody. If you're new here, we appreciate you so much following the channel. We've got over 20 videos documenting the rebuild process of our project boat. We've got 25 videos documenting the build of our big 29-footer that's behind us there, and numerous other videos to help the DIYers out there get a really good firm grasp on how professional boat builders like me and my family build and repair boats the right way. That's what we want. We want quality work always. So here we go. See, we've laid that in there, and again, you can see now the overlap on this one is going to be much lower, going right to the corner. I hope I made a good cut there, or pretty close. That is pretty darn close, or close enough for things. You can see we've got staggered joints there, progressively thicker, and that is going to result in a very, very strong union from the transom into the stringers. Okay, now at this point, what I will do, sometimes I will put a little subtle mark with my magic marker in the corners, just to help with an idea of like where the corner placement is on each piece. And then usually what I will do is set them slightly to the side. Same deal for this one, just so that I know exactly where it falls into the corner. A couple light marks. And same here. Please, I hope you folks at home forgive me. My voice is a little scratchy. We've been running fishing charters all week, and my voice is tired because we talk a lot. We had an exciting week. We caught some big red snapper and some triggerfish and a bunch of jack cavallias and some sharks. It was a really, really cool week, and fun part of the year for us to be able to get out on the boat. But we need to make some progress on our project boat here. So, all right, folks, I'm going to take this up, and we're going to get ready to go ahead and mix some of our resin and get rolling with this thing. Now, you folks, again, if you're following the channel, you know that we really like a vinyl ester resin. To me, is the all-around best resin for most repair projects. This one comes from Fiberglass Warehouse. There is a very nice discount code that'll save you some money. It's a Fish Bump TV discount code for Fiberglass Warehouse. Vinyl ester resin is stronger and more resilient, bonds better than polyester, but it's much easier to work with and less expensive than epoxy. And it's probably 85% of the strength, water blocking ability, and it's just of epoxy. So it's not quite as tenacious as bonding and or waterproofing, but it's a slight margin. And compared to most boats, which are built out of polyester resin, that's another question we get all the time. People are like, how do I know if my boat is compatible, or what is my boat built out of? Probably 95 to 98% of all boats on the market are built out of polyester resin, and vinyl ester is going to be completely compatible. It's going to be stronger and bond tenaciously to that. And that's what I like. It's also compatible with Gelcoat, which epoxy can have issues with secondary bonding if you want to Gelcoat over epoxy. I don't generally recommend it. Although we do have a video here in the channel. There is a product that will help you if you want to Gelcoat over epoxy, but I would recommend the vinyl ester. So today we're going to be mixing in 1 quart batches, and when we go back to the prep thing again, we got our little table, we got our little 1 quart mixing cups. Always important to agitate or mix your resin anytime you get a shipment in that's new, anytime you're going to be fiberglassing and your material has been sitting for a little while. Very important to be sure to agitate it and mix it properly. Sometimes it can settle. Now we're going just shy of a full quart, because when you try to add the catalyst and mix it, it can be a mess if you fill it all the way to the brim. No need for that. And per our little cheat sheet you folks have seen, let's just call this 32 ounces. Generally, you catalyze this at 1 to 2%. So 10 cc's would be at about a 1%, or 20 cc's would be about 2. It's quite hot today and we need plenty of working time. So we are going with 10 cc's. Got our little metered mixing cup. That's your MEKP, or methyl ethyl ketone peroxide. Again, if you take your little magic marker and highlight, it's much easier to see, at least for a guy like me. As I get a little bit older here, the eyes aren't as crisp. That's going to be right there at 10 cc's. That'll be plenty. This will actually somewhat change colors when you mix it. It'll go from kind of a purple to more of a gray brown. And usually about a minute of mix time. You want to change rotations, top to bottom, bottom to top. And I generally prefer to mix in a cup and then transfer to a pan. You're going to get a longer working time because your material is not going to get as hot. All right, there we go. Good mix, and then transfer. You can see that's kind of turned brown-ish in color. That is completely normal. Want to be sure to get as much material out of there as you can between batches. Get right down in those corners. Clean the stick off real good on the pan. And that pan will help this breathe a little more. You get a little more airflow. Over your batch of material, and it'll give you a little longer working time.